Dude, why does this
Ew, that's so nasty. Ew, that's disgusting.
sound like this? Well, it's because Christopher Larkin and Team Cherry are geniuses. Basically, just ridiculous, unspeakable, uncredible, unbelievable geniuses. Because look, pretty much every player that stumbles into Bilewater is gonna be surprised by the music that fades in. Because, of course they are. I'm guessing all of us generally see a green, nasty-looking poison place in a game and, expect this kind of music. Or a bit of this one. You know what I mean, something squelchy or like farty, innit? But Bilewater gets this? There's bound to be some small percentage of players who don't think twice about it, or pretty much ignore the music altogether. But I reckon the vast majority of us are going to get the sense that the music is hinting at there being something a bit more to this place than just a stinky swamp zone. And we'd be correct, there is more to it than this. So right from the moment you walk in and hear this, you get a little hint of lore. So this really isn't just background music, it's actually exposition too. Just a bit, but it catches your attention and it gets you that little bit more invested in the area. Maybe even motivates you a bit more to get in there and find out what's going on. It's not easy to get players invested in your smelly poison level, so what an absolutely inspired move to have the music do that. So it's music, exposition, and motivation. It's funny because in my last video I speculated that Greymoor's theme could be hinting at a history of beauty or prestige before some calamitous downfall. But with Bilewater's theme, we actually don't need to speculate. Snippets of written lore in the game confirm that it's absolutely the case here. In fact, you can see it for yourself in a certain little corner of the map. And if Greymoor's theme could best be described as solemn, Bilewater's music might be tragic. Although, if I'm allowed to sneak another word in there, I'd probably call it tragically beautiful, because it friggin' is. So it's not unreasonable to think that a lot of players will have figured out a good amount of the lore of this area just from like 1 minute of the theme. So it might not just be a little bit of exposition. For some players it could tell pretty much the entire backstory of Bilewater, in broad strokes at least. By this point in the game, you've probably gathered that the Citadel is causing the majority of Farloom's problems, so it follows that if Bilewater experienced some epic fall from grace, the Citadel is probably to blame. How the hell does this theme get all that tragedy and that past beauty across? Well, it's Christopher Larkin, isn't it? Dude's a beast. So, minor key, of course, pretty much goes without saying with the sad ones, innit? In this case, C# minor, which is a little bit unusual, I'd say. So it starts off with 2 repetitions of this main theme, and like the B section of Greymoor, it really clearly steps down the natural minor scale. If there's ever a way to emphasize the sadness and darkness in the minor scale, it's stepping all the way down it, right down to the tonic. Couldn't possibly fit any better for this area as well, as it's telling the story of Bilewater's descent into a toxic pit of decay. And for some reason, putting the 5th between each step down makes it more powerful. I'm not really sure how, but it does. And get a load of this texture in between the repetitions. Starts out with some pretty standard tremolos like we heard in Greymoor, but as they play out, it's like the sound gets corrupted, gets really harsh and distorted, to the point where I'm not exactly sure what the sound is, whether it's just distortion and some other effects on the tremolo, maybe harmonics, or maybe sneaked in some harsh flute textures on there. It's almost screechy, nothing like anything we heard in Greymoor. So this isn't just solemn, it's dangerous, it feels insidious. It's that toxic infection put into audio form. It's really incredible sound design. The second run of the melody has a female vocalist join in, and it just sounds so good. I love that the vocalist isn't too heavy on the vibrato. You can just hear a bit as the notes fade out. It's much more intimate this way, not all sort of theatrical. Makes it a bit more sorrowful. Is that a word? I'm just trying not to use sad all the time, to be honest with you. But it sounds very authentic, maybe even a bit vulnerable. And then the third time that main idea comes in, it's sort of a response with a little variation. This time, instead of moving down to the C sharp below, it hops up to the C sharp above, using a B sharp as a passing note. If you're wondering what kind of absolute freak would call a standard run-of-the-mill C a B sharp, it's just because technically any key is supposed to only use each letter once in a single octave. So since we're in C sharp minor, we've obviously already used the letter C for that C sharp, which is the tonic. So if we hit the standard C without the sharp, we should call it B sharp really. You know, just to keep the music nerds happy. Geeks. But yeah, in C sharp minor, we wouldn't actually expect to see a standard C or B sharp or whatever you want to call it, because it's not in the C sharp natural minor scale. Look. 7th degree is just B. And then you're back to the 8th degree, which is the same as the first, the tonic, which is C sharp. And we do know this song is in C sharp natural minor, because the bass line uses B rather than C as standard. But as you probably guessed, by the way I keep saying C sharp natural minor, there's more than one type of minor scale. And yep, you guessed it, one of them, well, actually sort of both of them, but it's weird, so forget about that for now, has a C, aka B sharp, for its 7th degree instead of B. It's called the harmonic minor, and it sounds like this. Ooh, a bit exotic sounding at the top there, eh? So yeah, it's just like the natural minor, but its 7th degree is a half step higher than the natural minor. Larkin subbed in the harmonic minor 7th degree here, which is a classic move and makes a bit more of a statement since the song is generally in C sharp minor, so it stands out. And yeah, it's a bit exotic, you feel it here just a touch in this track. It's not as dark as the natural minor, so this is giving us something other than just like sad. It's like there's more to the story, there's resistance to the oppression, somebody went down swinging or is still swinging to this day. Depends whether you've beaten Grohl, I guess, because on my save file, he ain't swinging anymore. Rip to the goat. The Grolt. Rip to the Grolt. Forget it. I'm talking far too much about the first 3 bars of this song, but there's more. So check out the rhythm on the melody. So these quavers, sorry, I've got to stop using these demented British words. These quarter notes consistently leading into the dotted half notes. Sort of brings to mind a kind of pushing feel, like pushing forwards, as if it's urging you to stumble through this nightmarish shithole in the same way. Just one foot in front of the other, just one pit of flesh-eating bastards at a time, eh? And the first few times you hear this main theme, you might feel like there's something subtly uneven with the rhythm, just a little bit off. It's this funky little mini bar that pops in out of nowhere. We're also used to hearing songs just picking a time signature and sticking to it the whole time. If you switch up the time signature at all, especially like this, it's just for one little sneaky 2-4 bar added in between the normal 4-4 bars. It's a little bit jarring. Now as it happens, Larkin's written the melody in such a way as to make it feel very natural, so the element of surprise is really quite subtle in this case. A lot of people might not consciously notice it at all, especially if they're not actively listening to the song. Pretty forgivable in Bilewater, to be fair. You've got a putrid, sickly hellscape to think about. But there it is, just throws the rhythm off just that little bit. It actually lengthens the phrase by 2 beats, because that time isn't made up for anywhere else with 2 missing beats or anything like that. It's a bit like Bilewater itself, it just means the phrase goes on a bit longer than you expect. And since it pretty much closes out the phrase, it gives you this subtle sense of kind of staggering across the finish line. Same way you stagger into that one bench room after miles and miles of poison bugs and spike traps and maggots nibbling your unmentionables and poison darts all up in you. Just all up in you. Yeah, you can have your darts back just as soon as I pluck them from my pincushion arse cheek, eh? Now, of course, the best thing about these interesting little compositional moves is that they make the song feel unique and intriguing, memorable, all of that good stuff. I know for a fact that, as someone who whistles incessantly, always friggin' whistling, sorry again to my housemates in uni, that must have sucked. But it's somehow more fun to whistle along to a tune that's a bit unusual. I assume it's the same for people who hum or sing along to things. Maybe it's because it takes a few more listens to learn exactly how a tune with some weirdness goes, so when you whistle or sing along to it, or even just kind of know that you know it, it feels like a tiny little achievement. Just enough for just a little bit of extra endorphins or whatever the good hormone is. I'm not a chemistry teacher over here. I don't know, but for sure it lends itself to being more enjoyable to listen to. It's a similar story when it comes to sort of interesting or complex harmonies, and there's a bit of that later in the track, we'll get to it. That slight difficulty in musically comprehending it makes it a little bit more rewarding to sort of consume once you know the song better. And then beyond all that kind of subconscious reaction, you have the enjoyment inherent in interpretation, which you can always do in more depth when the material's a bit more interesting. There's just more to think about, more to speculate about, just more to interpret. So yeah, TLDR, went on a bit of a tangent there. These special compositional techniques enhance the music on really every level. Yep, Larkin is, well, the man's got moves, let's say that. Alright, I've put it off long enough. Let's talk about
modal interchange.
That's right, we're bringing it back. So here we've got an example of the old made really clear by first showing us what note we'd normally use in this key signature, and then soon afterwards moving outside the key, similar to the way the Shellwood theme did it. Psst, watch my last video. It tells you how Shellwood did it. So look, this chord progression, which I really love by the way, because it sort of progresses really nicely rather than just looping the same 4 bars. It walks down the minor scale with the bass line, so C sharp, B, A. Again, helpful for the tone of the piece because it makes that minor tonality clear. And just as a side note, this bass line stepping down 1 note at a time, or the left hand of the piano in this first section, before the actual bass comes in, is part of the reason that sneaky added bar sounds natural, because it's used to help the bass line step down to the A from that C sharp. So the same way you might use a passing note to step between 2 distant notes, this is almost like a passing bar that eases the bass line downwards. It's quite sneakily done, that. And still on the side note, we'll get back to the modal interchange in just a sec, I swear. But it's great that the chord progression isn't just a load of loops. We do have repetition in the chord structure, but there's always more development between repetitions than typical songs, especially in the larger structure of this song. The second run through of the A section develops quite significantly on the first, and then sort of organically progresses into the B section, which is itself just one big progression with no loops. This is a really nice way to emphasize the idea of a narrative being told, rather than just, hey, this is a song, innit? But look, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Never get ahead of yourself in Bilewater, that's what I've learned playing Silksong. It's like, oh, I bet there's a bench coming up after this. Look, I can feel it just through this corridor. Back on track to the chord progression. I've greyed out the notes that aren't important for this bit. We'll just follow the bottom notes of the arpeggio because they make the movement the most clear. So it does this walking down thing. We go C sharp, B, A, which are the 1, 7, 6 chords, and hot tip, this progression is always a great foundation for a song. It's really easy to write nice melodies for some reason. Try it sometime, I bet you think of a brilliant melody with like barely any effort. But then the second time we do the same, but then drop even further into the murky depths instead of resurfacing. Down through the 5 to the 4 now, really getting down there. Then, setting up the dominoes for later, we use the 5 to get back to the A. So we've got this pattern, you sink down to the F sharp, then up again to the A. Here we go again, dropping back into the murky depths, and back up again. What the bloody hell's this? A sharp? Poison dart right to the ball bag, out of nowhere. Clearly this isn't in the key of C sharp. We know that because we just did this same movement, this whole same pattern, and it all sounded normal. But now there's this weird one that's happened. So alright, let's not piss about. You know what means at this point. If you don't, then watch my previous videos. It tells you what it means. It's when we sub in a note or chord or whatever from a different scale or mode, something other than the song's normal key signature. So here we've raised the A, which is the 6th degree of the C sharp minor scale, up half a step to A sharp. So what scale is the same as the natural minor, except it has a sharpened 6th degree? Well, if you're thinking easy, mate, classic case of Dorian that. Just check the piano arpeggios first. Little E sharp there. Yeah, so in the arpeggiated piano part, there's an A sharp and an E sharp, which means the 3rd degree of the C sharp scale, E, has been raised by a half step as well. So what has a raised 3rd and 6th degree compared to the natural minor? Well, good old... That's right, we've got a stupid little intro for all the modes now. Oh well, going for major anyway. So yeah, it's a popular little switcheroo, that is. You know, minor songs using major notes here and there and vice versa. It's just so damn effective for adding emotional nuance in your music. Subbing in notes from different modes just gives you a wider palette of colours. I think colours and flavours are perfect analogies for modes. It's just like exactly the same thing. If you use modes, you have access to more audio flavours. It's simple. But, you know, you can't just slap in any old thing from any old mode wherever and think it'll be cool. Discussion for another time, but suffice it to say there's an art to this. So yeah, sneaked in the major there, or the Ionian mode, to give us something to think about. You can really feel the way it affects the mood. It's one of those big moments that Larkin likes to use for in his songs. When the A section repeats, Larkin proper ramps up the emotion by adding some more instruments in, and really fleshing out some of the harmonies. I absolutely love the way the parts play around each other in this section. There's a lot of really beautiful counterpoint, which is when different melodic parts follow their own independent melodies, but they all sort of relate to each other's parts and complement them. These violins, as an example, they clearly feel like they're responding to the main piano theme that we're really familiar with. They do this upward movement that contrasts with the descending pattern of the melody. And it's kind of a call and response, but this reply from the violins comes in before the initial call from the piano has finished. It makes everything sound really intertwined together and just like really heart-wrenching. The fact that things just come in so organically, without really any formula to it, makes this really feel like a composer in a flow state to me. This is absolutely the most beautiful song in the soundtrack, in my opinion, by a fair margin too. And as if it isn't already moving enough, Larkin does this arpeggiated thing with the violas for this section. This swirling around the tonic note and hitting the 5th and the 2nd, which basically outlines a sus2 chord. We've talked about suspended chords before. It gives that unresolved kind of mysterious sound. With all these parts moving around each other and all these harmonies, it's like somebody's just shoved one of those butter churning sticks into your soul. Starts just churning it all around like, is that enough emotion for you? You feeling it yet? And you're there like, yes, Chris, I'm gonna cry. And he goes, no, you need to feel it more. And then he does this epic friggin' build with these strings. It's like, stop, dude, I can't handle it. It's quite a classic move, I think, those stirring strings rising up to help a build, and it's a really bloody nice example of it. Now have a go on the last big section that closes the song out. God, absolute roller coaster, isn't it? This bit is really crucial, I think, in connecting the song to the story of Bilewater for a couple of reasons. It's a really great concept. So if we take a look at the chords that are being used here, you can see that there's a whole lot that isn't in the key of C sharp minor. So you think this would be the point where I start getting all overexcited about. But that's really not what we're looking at here. For starters, kind of only has the desired effect when you use it in moderation. When you use it a bit here and a bit there, it just adds a new emotion or flavour, but it's still surrounded by the context of the key signature. So that nuance that it adds is understood fully in relation to the rest of the song. It's a bit like taking a small detour from the route you've planned on a map. If it's just a quick little turn or a branch off, you still know where north is and understand where you are in relation to your intended route. But then, if you start adding a detour onto your detour, and then another one, and then another one, and then maybe that last one takes you into a tunnel that isn't even on the map, then you might start to lose a sense of your surroundings and forget where the hell you came from. It's kind of how it is with modal interchange. If every bar is an interchange, your brain kind of loses track of the key signature, and then you risk losing the emotional effect, which often relies on the listener understanding how each chord relates to the home bass root note. But Larkin, being the sneaky genius he is, has sort of used that to his advantage here. He's deliberately gone this off-piste, knowing that it'll throw us off the key signature sound, and make the section feel like this epic, dramatic, twisty, turny tale where things are spiralling out of control. I mean, it is friggin' genius. And the other thing about this section is that there are some chords that don't even appear in the entire modal scheme. So there's tension all over the place in this progression. Of course the chords are generally unexpected, not least because there's no repeating pattern here. But if it includes chords that don't even appear in the modal scheme, and by the way that's basically this thing, we can talk about that in another video maybe. How does it feel like it's telling some kind of comprehensible, if tense and unsettling story? It's because the chords do follow a pattern, and it's sort of a structural pattern. So check out the chord names. E minor, G sharp minor, B minor, D minor. It's the same type of chord each time, a simple minor chord. And look at the intervals. So E to G sharp to B, B to D. We move up a minor third each time. So it's this escalation, like the story's escalating, the drama's escalating. It's like conflict and struggle. It's almost with some inevitability about it. That's how it strikes me. And this is a really good reminder, I find, that writing good music isn't just about the key signature and using the appropriate chords, or even when to sub them in with a bit of the old interchange. There's a million other things that can cause certain sounds and intervals and stuff like that to sound good and meaningful to us. And in amongst this escalating tension, we get this big plunging descent from the cello. Oh, what a statement that is. That really tells us what's happening here. It just drops like a ton of bricks. That's like the fall from grace, isn't it? And then the way it just gently, inevitably turns back into the A section. It's like now you really hear the A section as this nostalgic, mournful homage to what Bilewater once was. You hear it differently now. I mean, that is some galaxy brain composition in it. And you know what? Sometimes I notice things about these pieces when I transcribe them that I wouldn't have noticed if I was just listening to them. Really subtle things that help the music feel organic. Like look at this, leading up to the big spiral downwards on the cello, there's a double bass pluck every couple of bars, right? Just it underpins the other layers nicely, right? Pretty standard. But this big cello drop kind of interrupts it. The bass actually cuts out when the cello gets to the deepest point, possibly because there would be too much bass if they both played together and they'd muddy up each other's sound. But you'd think the bass would just come back in after the cello's done its thing. There's still a couple of bars where you'd expect a bass pluck before the song loops, or ends, depending on which version you're listening to. But it doesn't appear again. That's clearly a choice. And it makes this petering out of the sound in preparation for the return to the A section a little bit more gradual. It gives a better sense of the dust settling, rather than everything cutting all at once, which I think sometimes people are tempted to do, thinking it makes more of a statement to drop everything at the same time. And it just isn't really the case. This is so much more organic, it feels more real, and it tells the story better. I know this is a small thing, and maybe I'm more impressed by it than I should be, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that these things add up, and they take great music to sort of masterpiece level. Larkin's the goat. The Grolt. Larkin's the... Nope, still can't make it work.